Every time more is learned about the pyramids, we move further into dark on understanding how they were formed. If what Thoth says is true, well, it
dude,
explains everything.
an architect
From
figured
there,
this shit
Thoth
out,
and
man.
friends constructed
You're a
an entire
dumbass.
network of temples and structures along this grid fourth dimensionally, placing them on nodes on the new synthetic Christ consciousness grid they were creating. All of them were made with Fibonacci or golden mean spirals, and all of them were mathematically referred back to the solar cross in Egypt through the Great Pyramid.
Except
the
the
creation of all
master
the
man.
sacred sites on the planet were no accident. It was a single consciousness that created them all.
Dude, what?
All at once, I'm sure, too.
You name
Using
it.
different
There are a few
materials,
exceptions, but most were created
different
by single
designs,
awareness as part of a unity
different
consciousness
architecture.
grid. Although the Great Pyramid was done all at once, many of these ancient structures of the world were made fourth dimensionally and slowly dropped in frequency until they manifested.
Dude, what? They just fucking materialized?
Research moves this forward, but it wasn't the first either. They showed how one sacred site is extrapolated from another to another.
Extrapolated.
A hot topic of discussion right now
Other
are ley
words,
lines.
you draw the lines after the sites are there. That's real.
Archaeologists are now finding these huge connections between major spiritual sites in the globe, and now we know why they're connected. These sites had to be built physically so that the Christ consciousness grid could manifest. In a way, think of the physical sites as the wiring of a giant wireless electrical system, and then it needs about 13,000 years of continuous energy flow for it to actually turn on.
Why?
And just so that you're not left in suspense,
Fuck if I know.
yes, the grid was completed. It came to life and is now active, though not really used. Congratulations, Earth. We actually survived. Not only has Thoth told us this in person,
We just survived listening to your bullshit.
In person?
Were left in the Great Pyramid
What?
thousands of years ago. There are 12 tablets in total, formed from a substance created.
No,
with
dude, there's one.
They're imperishable.
Alchemy?
No, they're not, man.
Corrosion. Their atomic
They don't
structure
fucking
is fixed in
exist, you
place, and
moron.
no change can ever take place. In that respect, they violate the material laws of ionization.
That's some
These tablets share a
bullshit,
great
man. What are you
and can
smoking,
read them at over
motherfucker?
100 different
Give me
levels
some of that
consciousness,
shit, man.
and you will
I
always
want
understand
some.
them differently.
I want some.
If you're interested in
Dude.
this stuff, you should definitely consider reading them. As you
I'm
can probably
interested in the
tell,
drugs, man. Give me what
pretty
you're
much
smoking,
know
man.
what happened. Most of this
Oh,
information
man.
comes from him. Thoth
Your
also
I hate
imaginary
being
friend
short.
plays a
information about the
great
process and its geometric
role.
relationship to consciousness with us, and this stuff is tied intimately to the geometry of the universe.
The
Considering
what?
the quality and quantity of information that he has shared, it makes you really start considering that this next part can be true.
No, it
The Great
doesn't.
Pyramid has
Or
a
not.
legendary missing capstone. According
Dude,
to the
it
ancient
eroded,
tablets
you
deep under
fucker.
the Great Pyramid, there's a room called the Hall of Records. This room was not built by Thoth and long predates the Atlantean civilization. Within
Dude,
the Hall
it's
of
not
Records is
there.
the capstone of the pyramid, which is 5.5 inches high.
Oh,
solid gold,
bullshit,
and
man.
completely
That would've been
holographic
sold
image
years
of the
ago,
Great
man.
Pyramid. It has layers and everything. However,
Yeah.
this leaves us with a 24 square foot piece of the Great Pyramid that's missing. If what Thoth says is true, that missing piece actually belongs to a very special airship that exists on Earth. And the way to the airship is through the Sphinx. The Sphinx, according to Thoth,
Dude,
is
what?
5,000 years old, but dates back over 5.5 million years on Earth. Deep under the
What?
Sphinx is a 1 mile down,
No.
round room with a flat floor and flat ceiling.
What?
No.
Inside this room
No.
is the oldest synthetic
No.
object on Earth.
No.
The object is about
Dude,
2
that
feet
room's
in
not there,
size.
man.
It's round like a disc and has a flat bottom and top. It
That
is
bottom
also
girls
only
make the
about
rock
3
and
atoms
world
thick,
go
except for a pattern
round.
on the
Flying
top and bottom, which
saucers
looks like
now.
this. This pattern is 5 atoms thick. Thoth says that
And
it's powered
now.
by consciousness.
Yeah,
and thoughts
dude.
and feelings.
I get you, Billy
Connects with
Goat.
your own living
It
Merkaba,
does actually
which
look like a
means that it becomes
sundial.
an extension of you and your own energy fields. The ship is also intimately connected with the spirit of the Earth and is the protector for the whole planet. Thoth built the pyramid the way he did to fit with the ship. When on top of the Great Pyramid, it creates this image from above. The disc ship has a circumference equal to the perimeter of the Great Pyramid. As we discussed in Lesson 11, whenever that ratio appears, life occurs. This is only used by the purest of souls. See, whenever we approach the point in the precession of the equinox where our poles
So
do these
obviously
shifts,
a girl.
we become very vulnerable. Things often degenerate, and while things
What's
become
this dude
chaotic,
talking
there are
about?
often other species
Dude, I
that
ain't
wish
high
to
enough
take
for
us
this
over.
shit.
This
Hang
has
on.
always happened, not just with us, but with all evolving consciousness. Every time a takeover seems imminent, a very pure person will find their way to the ship and raise it into the air. The Earth and Sun will connect with that person and give him or her great power. Then whatever that person thinks and feels will happen. And think about it. If consciousness is the primary core component of the entire planet, does it not make sense that it would have its own defense mechanism? This defense is an airship that plugs into the Earth and the Sun, allowing the Earth to have protection. Our takeover event actually already happened, the same year the Christ grid was activated. The year was 1989, and we were having some troubles with the Greys, a race of ETs who were clearly plotting takeover.
Dude, what?
What?
Whoa, there isn't enough drugs in the world for this shit.
The Greys?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're watching too much X-Files.
Fucked up, man.
Due to a previous scuffle we were having. a very pure woman in Peru made the ascension process into the
Called it.
consciousness
Of
earth
course.
and found the ship.
Yeah, you call the
She
little girl.
tuned it to the frequency of the fourth dimension, where she raised it through the earth and into the air, and manifested a situation for the Greys to leave. Within a very short time,
Mulder!
the Greys began getting sick, and remained sick for as long as they stayed here. They have been forced to leave for now, and we are once
You're
again safe.
making me
The
sick.
ship is a warship, and that whatever race is trying to take over, the person will just think them away, think up a
Like some
situation,
weird
and force
exorcism
them to leave.
shit,
Returning
man.
to the events on Atlantis, after completing the complex in Egypt,
Whoa, dude, we're back in Atlantis now? The fuck?
Okay, everybody,
What?
think real hard. Maybe if we all think together, we can think spirit science away!
Cool. I'm not thinking so good. Meh. Is it working?
It's not working.
Oh, shit.
Oath and pals returned to Atlantis, where they waited for about 200 years until that critical point on the precession of the equinox where the poles would shift. They knew that Atlantis would sink, and they would be ready.
Oh, what the fuck?
Oh,
So, the poles are shifting. Oh, the pole shift? Yeah, whoa, what's wrong with your eyes? I don't know.
It's the drugs, man.
When
Give
the
me
Earth
some.
saw signs of the polar shift, they returned to the land of Chem and raised the warship into the sky.
Bless
They
you.
went to Atlantis and picked up the Nakals. The Nakals weren't just passengers, though, and each and every being was working in unity to create a very powerful Merkaba around themselves and the ship. They returned to the Great Pyramid and landed the ship on top, forming the phi ratio with the pyramid.
Right.
And then it happened.
It's a landing
The poles
pad.
began to shift,
Dude,
and
you're
human
fucking weird.
consciousness began to plummet. Simultaneously, the electromagnetic and magnetic fields of the Earth
I thought the
collapsed.
pole shift was supposed to be
All
like
life on the
instant,
planet
according to
went
this
into the
asshole.
Great Void, the 3.5 days of absolute blackness described by many ancient cultures in the world.
What?
The Emerald
right.
tablets say that whenever we go through a polar shift, we go through
Emerald
a void
tablets
space
don't
as we
exist,
change our
man.
frequencies for about 3.5 days. This is also in
But I thought it shifted in like a day.
Yeah, that's right. You did say that.
But now every time it shifts, we're in a void for 3 days.
I'd like to avoid this shit.
I'm so confused.
the Toronto document depicted by 3.5 stones painted black.
Toronto
This
document.
refers to a time when we go through what science calls the electromagnetic null zone.
Dude, it doesn't say any
In
of
the
this
pole
shit.
shift, a phenomenon
a
takes place
null.
where everything just seems to disappear for a certain time. Usually it's between 2 to 4 days, and the last time it was 3.5 days.
What?
Here's where it gets interesting. What happens to us does not usually happen
Hey,
to a normal
yeah, you claim to
species,
know this,
because
Hama?
most advanced species will have their Merkabas handy at the time of the shift.
Oh yeah, because
Through a
that
little crisis,
Melchizedek
got
said
sucked
he
into
was
the void
channeling
space without
Thoth
protection.
or some
This
shit. Yeah.
resulted in us losing our memories. Science realizes that all of our
Always
memories are
use
connected through cells in our
protection.
brains as well as fields around our heads. What is not entirely understood by science yet, at least not directly, is the connection our memories have with the planet itself.
What?
We've discussed this before. The magnetics of the Earth affect how we think and act. The Merkaba is an electromagnetic field that you create around your body that
So,
can serve
like,
as protection
if
from
I put a
voids
magnet
as your
on either
consciousness
side of my
going
head,
through.
it'll affect my
What
memory?
happened to us when we didn't have that
What?
protection? It was a clean wipe. When
Yeah,
we
clean
existed on
wipe.
Atlantis, we were living at a very
Hey guys! I think we know what happened to spirit science. A clean wipe.
Dude, I'm a
Maybe
rep.
that's
Wipes
what
don't
needs
stay
to
clean
happen to
long.
Spirit science.
Oh, sorry, what? Yeah, fuck it.
high level of consciousness in a higher dimension. We had extremely advanced and sophisticated bodies and minds, and were capable of practically anything, living in a dimension where molecules were spaced so far apart that consciousness could interact with them without physically moving. It's hard
And
to
the
explain
space
because
between
you can literally
molecules
shape your
affects that?
environment immediately through your
So we can, like,
consciousness
control
inside
air and
frequencies.
shit?
In that sense, we
Sure.
were creators, knowing and understanding oneness, beings of love. But then we fell. We dropped back down to this place called the third dimension.
Yeah, that
We
was
also
pretty good,
fell in
man.
consciousness back to zero.
Oh, cool.
We forgot how to use the pineal gland, and it slowly shrunk to
what?
the size it is now, like a raisin, where it's supposed to be eyeball size. When
Man.
this happened, we
A vertical eyeball inside our head.
Man.
I just wanted to make sure that everyone saw that.
Man. Yeah, that's one of the parts that the Egyptians threw
Right.
away as being junk, because it's
forgot how
like
to
part of the
breathe
brain.
source
Yeah.
energy into our bodies, and our lifespans went kaput. Eventually, we went from 900 years to
what?
what it is today. We had not experienced this dense reality.
Dude,
that we had
lifespans
before,
are
at
getting
least for
longer.
a
What's
very
your
long
fucking
time.
problem?
We were kind of like a supercomputer that gets completely wiped. No operating system or anything.
Dude, you
We had
think
these
like everything
advanced
is true.
physical
What the
bodies,
fuck?
But we didn't know how to use them. This is why today we are so physically advanced compared to pretty much all the other animals in this third dimension. For a time, the survivors of the Atlantean fall, and there were a few, were literally hairy barbarians.
Literally,
we even
yeah,
had to
right.
rediscover fire.
Oh,
New
whoa.
research suggests that Plato's story was based on real events.
Dude,
Recent
really?
underwater explorations off the Greek island of Santorini have revealed deposits from a massive volcanic eruption. one of the greatest in human history. And on Santorini itself, archaeologists have uncovered an ancient city, a lost world, buried by the catastrophe.
The reason we're having such a hard time finding evidence of
What the fuck was
Atlantis
that?
is because for the most part, the events of Atlantis took place on a much higher dimension.
Because it didn't exist!
Or at a tiny fucking island
Everything
with a
on board
crate.
Atlantis can't be taken as that's what it looked like, because it didn't. This landmass did physically exist, and the Atlanteans were not inhabiting that dimension of its existence.
Yeah, he's talking about moon,
If the
not
warship
Atlantis,
hadn't
yeah.
been protected by the Merkaba, the Nicals would have lost their memories. They retained their memories when the Earth came out of the void and began their work once more. Thoth and 1/3 of the Nicals went to the Island of the Sun in Bolivia. Aragot and 1/3 went to Tibet, and Ra and the remaining third went to Egypt, where they waited.
But the spiritual
Now,
center is this
we're
fucking
doing
Kundalini
this
shit,
story
man.
and our
So why'd they go to
history.
3 places,
In
huh,
between the fall of
fuckhead?
Atlantis and
Huh?
the dawn of our first civilizations,
Can't keep
the
track of his own
Egyptians and the
shit.
Sumerians, there was a 6,500-year gap between them. What was happening to us in that time? We have to look at this precession chart again. This is where we fell in consciousness, point C, and this was our falling asleep phase too. Thoth, Ra, and the Ascended Masters were waiting until point D. They had to wait
Isn't
for
this the
humans
falling
to just
asleep
evolve
state?
themselves
This is when
over a
people are believing shit like
6,500-year time
this.
period until they were advanced
Dude,
enough
come
to actually
on.
receive this new information that they were going to provide. Sometime in here was when the flood of Noah occurred.
The
Because of
what?
shift, the Earth went through an ice age. This
So, the flood actually happened too.
And this fucker calls himself spirit science.
The
Yeah,
flood
science
of
my
Noah,
ass. Yeah.
specifically. Noah.
Yeah, he's dumb.
is scientific fact. When the ice melted, it would have caused massive flooding.
Scientific fact, he doesn't know what that word
DNA
means.
is the physical manifestation of who you are. It
What?
is your soul's physical aspect. What we are seeing in DNA is changes in the codons. There's 64 possible codons in DNA, and humans only have about
Codons?
22 or so. What we're finding is that there are 6 more
So
codons
humans
being
have 22?
activated within these children, and they are choosing 2 of the 6.
Yeah.
These kids are what we call indigo and crystal children, and probably super psychics as well.
The fuck?
Oh, no. Not indigo kids. And they're choosing.
Yeah,
And
that
what
fucked me
the
up.
fuck is wrong with that purple kid?
No shit.
I think he chose the wrong DNA.
Yeah, no shit.
You
Whoa.
freak.
Now, this is a chromosome. Basically, what this is lots and lots of DNA wrapped into this weird H-like shape.
Dude, that's an
Yeah.
ass.
Located
real
in every
weird.
cell and is part of your body of consciousness. What Thoth tells us is that every level of consciousness seen here
Hey,
not only has its
Thoth,
own consciousness grid,
fuck
but
off!
its chromosome change as well. The
What?
second level, where we are now, has 44 and 2 chromosomes. To any scientist, this is basic biology.
Dude,
The
what?
first level, however, has 42 and 2, and this third level has 46 and 2. The fourth and fifth have 48 and 2 and 50 and 2, respectively.
Doesn't know much
The
about
primary physically visible
biology.
difference between these DNA in all life
Doesn't know
is
much
height.
about
The first level has an
anything
average
we
height of 4 to 6
see.
feet tall. The second level, us, has an average height of 5 to 7 feet. Third are about 10 to 16 feet, which we
Dude,
are about
what?
to translate to. Fourth is 30 to 35
Right.
feet, and the last is 50 to 60. You may remember a being named
Lord.
Metatron, the Hebrew archangel, who is the perfection
what?
of what humanity is to become. He's 55 feet tall, that guy. The last 2 heights are far in the distant future
Sure.
for us, though.
Hey, how many chromosomes do pandas have?
Whatever
This
you
is a place in
say,
Egypt today
spirit.
called Abu Simbel. The first
it
thing
up.
you notice is that
Come
these
on.
statues are huge, but with the information about the DNA, this paints a different picture. These beings would be in the 60-foot range if they were to stand. They were at the 5th
I
level
guess
of
the
consciousness.
Statue of Liberty
These beings on a
existed
different wall are
too.
35 feet tall.
Yeah, right.
4th level of consciousness. Here are some 3rd levels as well. Archaeologists saw this and thought that it meant that the man was just much more important than the woman, when in actuality, the kings of Egypt had 5 different names, one for every level of consciousness.
Dude, you think they're really
Some of the
that
kings
tall?
were even able to translate into different dimensions, and that's how they guided the population with the power of the gods. In Egypt, according to today's top archaeologists and researchers, the Egyptians and Sumerians both began their civilizations right around the same time from each other, within a few hundred years or so.
But the
Both of these
Egyptians always won the
civilizations
wars because they were giants. Right. Dude. What?
And red pandas have 36 chromosomes.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I'm a giant.
That's what, 70...
Right?
72 and 2? I don't know.
Giant.
Yeah.
Emerged out of nowhere with
What?
perfect writing abilities that were not improved upon since. When they first emerged, they were extremely sophisticated and clear, and slowly degenerated over generations.
Clear?
No
maybe he's
archaeologist can
Scientologist.
explain how this happened or explain how it could have happened. They placed Egypt and Sumer into a special classification called stair-step evolution. What happened was, one day, Egypt got its language, full and complete. Then the knowledge leveled off. And then it got another massive leap a little while later. And
That's
suddenly,
like
they knew
cultural
everything
evolution.
about water and moat systems
Not
just perfect.
like biological,
Then,
you
a little time
retard.
later, bam, they're masters of hydraulics. How did Egypt and Sumer do this? Well, this is what Thoth said.
No,
When we
they
were
didn't
evolving
just,
on our
you
own
know,
for
figure
6,500
things out.
years, the ascended masters were waiting in an underground city beneath the Great Pyramid. We'll come back to this in a
What
bit.
the fuck?
Thoth's
Sure.
son Tat formed a group called the Tat
Dude.
Brotherhood, which is a secret group that still exists today as protectors and keepers of the sacred temples. Today, they're still connected to the ascended masters. So about 6,000 years ago, some members of the Tat Brotherhood would wait.
Dude, I
to
need
meet
some more.
someone
This
who
is
could
fucked
understand
up.
what they were going to teach them. When they found someone, they would just tune their
Like
frequencies
you,
to the
obviously.
third dimension and walk up and tell them information flat out.
Left
Hey,
the
if you do
country.
this and this happens. The Egyptians would say, "Wow, look at that." Then they would go underground, wait another little while, and repeat the process. Over
They're
a short
fucking
period of
vampires,
time,
man.
The Egyptian and Sumerian evolution shot up in stair steps. As for the Sumerians, they also received a more detailed story by those who were assisting them. They described to the Sumerians in all of the details they remembered. They said, "This is the history of the planet. Write it down." The Sumerians
that's why
knew
it
about the
wasn't
precession
written
of the
down.
equinox because they were told it by the Nakals from Atlantis.
Bullshit.
After the
course.
stair-step period, we began to fall asleep further. Things got worse once more. It was our falling sleep stage of precession, and although the Nakals had given us a boost, we were consciously dozing off.
What?
On that note, it's
Consciously
time for the
dozing
story
off.
about the city
No
under the
shit.
pyramid. Keep an open mind about
Makes
this.
no
Like
fucking
your
sense.
Very little
permanent
proof
state.
for what I'm about to say. For over 40 years, Drunvalo Melchizedek has been studying human consciousness through sacred
And
geometry and spiritual
Melchizedek
teachers and
again.
masters all over the world. In 1996,
Learned
he was
about human
contacted by a
consciousness or
source
studying
speaker
fucking
who said that
geometry,
something incredible
moron.
had been
That's
discovered.
psychology.
A stone stele came out of the ground between the paws of the Sphinx into the daylight. They removed it and dug into the earth beneath the
Sure.
Sphinx. There they found a
Right,
room
yeah.
with 3 tunnels leading off of it. One of the tunnels, which went to the Great Pyramid, had another tunnel coming off it, and it was shielded by a wall of light. Bullets could not pass through this field, and people could not even get
Learned
close to
this
it
shit from
without fearing they were
channeling
going
too,
to die.
moron.
Do we have a source for this?
Nope. Ain't no.
Anybody? Anybody?
No, fuck no.
Source?
He's making this shit up, man.
Source material? Yeah, I didn't think so.
The Egyptian government found a particular person who could turn off this field. They also had brought in Paramount Studios to film it, as they had filmed the opening of King Tut's tomb. They had
Dude, that was a movie. That wasn't real.
wanted several $1 million from Paramount, but at the last minute they asked for an
Like
extra $1.5
1922
million
or
under
some
the
shit,
table.
man.
Paramount
Fictional
was outraged,
movie.
and they backed off. Things were silent for about 3
Romance,
months.
actually.
Then Drunvalo heard from a source again, who was involved in all this, who said that 3 men shut off the light field and went inside. They
Of
found
course they
themselves
did.
inside a very large building that went on for miles underground, which was really the edge of a giant underground city, which was really just
And
one
no one
giant
had a
building. Then, a little while later,
And you
Personal
an
recorded
Egyptian
this shit.
archaeologist named Larry Hunter began describing the same thing, but more detailed. He said that the city was 6.5 by 8 miles wide and 12 stories deep, and the city was outlined by specific temples in Egypt. The 3 pyramids are lined up with Orion's belt, but there are also small temples for every other star in
Everything's
the
lined up with
constellation.
Orion's
Those temples
belt.
map out
It's
city
in the
underground
fucking
and are made out of a
sky.
special stone
Dude,
not
none of
found
this shit
anywhere else
lines
in
up the way
Egypt,
you're
called
saying.
Koinen stone. Incredibly enough, very recently, ancient tunnels were found in Romania that led to both Egypt and the Inner Earth.
Oh,
I don't have
bullshit.
time to go into detail about this particular story.
Inner Earth, wait a minute.
Check out the book Transylvanian Sunrise by Radu Sinamar. To be
Or
clear,
not.
this is a theory that has not been accepted by the Egyptian government, but the underground city that Thoth said was there
'Cause
is,
they're
according
not
to Mr. Hunter,
idiots.
marked by temples made of a unique substance, and the temples match the star pattern of the constellation of Orion.
That's not what the dude says.
4,000
I'll
years
listen to
before
his
the
lectures.
stair-step evolution, we were at our lowest stage of our evolution. We were hitting bottom on the awareness road.
And we
Suddenly,
all
out
looked
of the
like
darkness,
spirit
3
science.
men came to Earth to give us a little nudge.
Oh, fuck you, dude.
Everything in ancient
The
Egypt
3 wise men?
No? Oh, they're wiser than he is.
Gee, fellas, I thought you were mummies. Oh, you did, eh?
They had this entire civilization based around achieving heightened states of consciousness.
The Three
But they had to do
Stooges.
it through
Yeah,
tools.
I want to watch
We're not
that,
gonna
not
get into
this
these
shit,
tools
man.
individually,
What the
but let
fuck?
me
Come
give you a
on.
brief overview here. This tool was used for transferring vibrations
Of course he
into the
will.
body. Along with that were the hook and flail. This little device was a kind of generator to increase vibrations,
Dude, what the
though
fuck's
there's not
that?
too much information available on it.
It's a vibrator.
Oh, okay, I get it.
The Ankh. They saw the Ankh as the secret to eternal life, and they used it not as a physical tool, but as an energetic one. They would
What?
use this form and ankh their sexual energy.
Huh?
Now, this could be a huge
It is a vibrator.
like how energy travels up and down the body through a vertical tube between 5 energy channels that counter-rotate as they extend through the body. But
What?
basically,
I don't think
sexual
that's
energy is
right.
an incredibly powerful energy. We definitely abuse it today, but what the Egyptians knew was that when you had an orgasm, a very large amount of energy bursts from your root chakra all the way up your spine to the top of your head, and then it gets released. What the Egyptians would do was when the spiral of energy hit their heart chakra, they would onk the energy out of the body and over their head
because
and
onks
back
are
into their heart, where they would keep the energy and retain a massive energy boost. In other words, if you take a tuning fork and hit it, it will reverberate for a certain amount of time.
Dude, do you know
Then,
chakras
if you attach
aren't
an
from
onk on
Egypt?
top of it and hit it again, it will reverberate at
Wrong
least
part of the
3
world,
times
fuckhead.
longer. The Egyptians were doing this with their bodies. Moving on, when Atlantis was first formed, the Nacals set up something called a mystery school. This is a special type of school where you learn about consciousness, and you learn different aspects of expanding your own consciousness, and eventually getting to a place where you become immortal. It usually took a very long time.
That's some good shit there.
To achieve this state, and that's why there were only about 1,000 Nacals in comparison to the millions of Lemurians at the start of Atlantis. The first Atlantean to reach the immortal state was a man named Osiris. Ancient Egypt's mythology tells us
and now we have Osiris.
a man who was killed and cut up into pieces by his brother in an act of rage, and then the pieces were scattered. This event, perhaps less exaggerated than the myths, actually did happen, and it took place on Atlantis. Osiris's wife and sister retrieved the pieces, and upon returning the final piece, they restored the creative energy flow and brought his spirit back into the body.
Told ya!
In doing this, Osiris became immortal, and he was the first immortal of Atlantis. This story is told throughout ancient Egypt on many temple walls, and I'm going to show you why. Osiris went through the phases of consciousness. The first one was whole, the second was separated from itself.
Dude talks about
physically,
Egypt, he doesn't know
and
what
the third was
Bankar,
immortal.
man.
The Nacals used Osiris's understanding of how he became immortal as a template for how others could do it as well. Only
Dude,
through
you're a
consciousness,
moron.
Without needing to be cut up, of course. This eventually became what we would call the religion of Atlantis, but it was more of a deeper understanding that they were following. This template was also used in Egypt, which we will look at now. Through the stair-step evolution, we
Oh,
began to
fuck,
expand
man,
the
there's more?
level of
Holy
consciousness
shit,
into
man.
the second.
Does this
Before
fucker
the fall,
ever
we
shut
had
up?
incredible memories. It wasn't this vague recollection that we have now, but today we might see it as full-tilt 3D holographic memory. After the fall, we still had a photographic memory, and we could share these experiences with each other, which is called dream time.
Well, guys, I figured it out.
Huh?
That's how spirit science knows all this. He has a psychic, photographic memory of the entire history of the Earth. And he was given this in his dreams by his imaginary friend. So,
This guy's a nightmare, man. Yeah.
yep,
Bah.
I got it now.
It is what the Aborigines of Australia still have today. Through the introduction of writing, however, we began to change from the first level of consciousness into the second. We lost our incredible memories and became very separate from each other and ourselves.
And that's a level
Thoth was
up?
the one who introduced writing, and if you look at ancient
Yeah.
Egyptian culture, it even says,
Blame it
Thoth
on
brought writing
Thoth.
to us, as well as many other things. Now that we were in the second level, over time, things began to change, and a very serious problem developed, which if it hadn't been solved, it would have caused a major catastrophe in our own near future. Basically, in Egypt, the Ascended Masters had used Osiris's genetic coding of changing chromosomes to
Genetic
show others
coding?
the path
What?
of ascension. They developed a system of 42 and 2 gods, with a lowercase g. They were actually called Neiters. Most will recognize this one.
What?
Neater.
There were 42 and 2 Neiters, who were representative of human chromosomes. Each one of them showed
No,
a
the gods
specific
don't
pathway of
represent
life or
chromosomes,
human
dude. What the
experience,
fuck?
And people would follow these understandings to learn more about
Yeah.
their life or their own reality.
Sure.
The problem developed when both Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt became more separated from themselves, and the meanings of these leaders were lost. Over time, the drawings of these leaders changed.
Yeah, those by the
and
Pharaoh
meanings
Narmer.
changed with them.
No,
People had
Menes.
no idea what they meant.
Menes, rather.
Then it
Yeah.
got worse when the Egyptian king Menes merged Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt into a unified country. Menes also merged the belief systems.
Yeah,
So now
I
you have
hate it when
88
people
gods
get
that people were
unified.
fighting over to decide who was really God.
No, it's Menes,
This
man.
was an issue because now they had people not
Sometimes
knowing what
called
to
that.
believe,
It's usually Narmer,
completely
but yeah.
lost, separated
Like
from their
It's
understanding
okay.
of their own divinity and God. Things became separated further. People fought over which gods were really gods. Today we look back and say, "Wow, they thought there were so many gods," when really this wasn't the case at all. Even with the help from the Tat Brotherhood, we
Yeah,
just
he's the
couldn't
first
get
king
it
of the
right.
first dynasty, man.
There was one short period of Egyptian culture that most historians don't really understand. As it's written in ancient texts and hieroglyphs, for 17 and a half years, there was a bizarre new ruler that completely changed how Egypt was run.
Ooh, let me guess. An alien.
No, man, that was some inbreeding going on there, man.
It's an alien.
Yeah. No, it's inbreeding.
I bet he's gonna say it's an alien.
Oh, he probably will, but he's a dumb fuck.
His name was Akhenaten. Before
What?
him, there were only kings. Akhenaten was the first pharaoh.
Oh, bullshit, man.
That which you
Minos was the first king, you
He was
fuckhead.
also, believe it or not, 15 to 16 feet tall, at least
Right.
that's how he was depicted, and had an elongated
Because
skull.
statues show you how tall people are.
Inbreeding.
Akhenaten abolished
yeah,
all previous
sure.
understandings of God,
Man,
and
Lincoln was
instilled
one tall
God
motherfucker, wasn't he?
understanding in everyone. After 17 years, the majority of Egyptians revolted and Akhenaten was killed, soon to be replaced by someone else, returning to the old system. What actually happened? To correct
Aliens.
the problem, Thoth got the help from Ai and Tia, who were the first immortals from Lemuria.
What does
and
this
got
have to do with
them
him
mate
disappearing?
interdimensionally to conceive a Christ consciousness
Interdimensional sex.
Thoth said that he
Ew.
worked with the previous
sounds
kings of
like
Egypt
shit,
to
man.
help achieve this, and Egyptologists find that Akhenaten came completely out of nowhere. It took time, and there was a transitional period involving Amenhotep III, but soon Akhenaten was on the throne.
What?
Akhenaten used his time to bring Egypt back to a simple religion where there was one God, one reality. He used imagery of a sun disk to represent this. The priests
Yeah, it
in
wasn't
Egypt
a
didn't
power
like that
thing
because
at
the
all.
religious beliefs were centered on the priests. Then he comes along and says, "You don't need priests."
Oh, calm down, dude. Dude, I know.
He didn't like that.
Calm down,
He also
good
pulled the
man.
military back and
It was
said,
the other
"Don't
way
attack
around.
unless someone
He
else
was
attacks
actually like
first."
super hyper military guy and
Plus,
gave almost
people
all the
generally
power to the
didn't like it
priests,
because they
which were
enjoyed
loyal to
worshiping
him.
the gods.
Yeah.
Eventually, they disposed of him.
He was like killing people
After
left and
all
right. That guy was a
what did
motherfucker.
Akhenaten do that evidently saved humankind? Well, he developed the mystery school, with the intention of showing a small group of humans a way
Dude,
to
says
ascend
who?
into the immortal state. Usually, it took hundreds of years to reach the level of immortality, and Akhenaten had 17 years to produce results. This was a very close call.
bullshit.
But he did it. He
Yeah,
actually
right.
showed 300 individuals the path to immortality in this short time. So after the
Wait,
general
how long does it take to
population
cut somebody up,
disposed of
reassemble them
Akhenaten,
and
these
shit?
300 immortals would go beyond Egypt.
Oh, and I'm sure they're still here today.
Thoth wrote in the Emerald Tablets that after ancient Egypt ended, he brought a man named Pythagoras into the Great Pyramid and taught him the geometry
What?
of the universe.
Of
That
course.
man then went on to found Greece.
What?
Upon schools for
Dude.
Pythagoras
geometry and the political
founded
codes and all of that.
Greece!
Thoth
Yeah, they're a
was
bunch of independent city-states
where he
and,
was known as the
yeah, all founded separately.
Akhenaten's immortals became a group called the Essene Brotherhood. They migrated to a place called Masada in Israel. Even today,
Essene
Masada
Brotherhood,
is known as the
yeah.
capital of the Essene Brotherhood. Now get this. In this brotherhood, there were two people in particular, a man and a woman. You
Oh,
might have
dude,
heard of
don't
them.
go there.
Mary and Joseph?
Oh, for
Part of
fuck's
the Master's
sake.
plan that they would bring in a being who would show the pathway to
What?
consciousness. He would come to Earth as a second-level being, a regular Joe, and achieve Christ consciousness through the course of his life. Then, the ascension process, the transitional experience from the
So
second
Christ
to third level,
consciousness
would go into the
predated
consciousness grid that was
Christ.
being formed. He was able to transition because he was originally from these higher levels. That man is known today as Jesus, although his name at that time was Yahshua ben-Hur.
Ben-Hur, what the fuck, dude? Hey, yo, Drama Mama, in post, get somebody to talk about this shit.
Higher levels of understanding even existed.
Wow.
Even
Dude
Oh,
knows
whoa.
according to what Thoth said, Mary and Joseph made it
everything.
interdimensionally. Mary
Oh,
was
more
born
spirit
physically,
fucking, what the hell?
Joseph was later to allow a soul from a higher reality to come down to Earth and have a human experience. Usually, this is impossible to
Ew.
do otherwise. Through
Dude,
Yahshua's
my
birth,
stash is
he
getting
came
low.
here just like us,
This
a
shit
total
better end
human
soon.
being. But he went through these three
Like,
important stages:
totally.
final death, resurrection, and
Oh,
ascension,
man.
and gave us these experiences so that we could access them down the road. Now, as we all know, the story of Jesus has a missing piece. He was a child, disappeared for some time, and then showed up again
Yeah,
when he was
just
30.
disappeared.
In a
Not
book
that
called
we
The
just
18
don't have
Absolute Years of Jesus
anything
Christ,
written
the
down.
leading
No,
figure
man,
of
there
the
are
book
some
was
lost
actually
gospels
a
and
priest
shit that have the
who lived
shit.
in the Himalayan or Tibetan mountains, where he became
What?
an enlightened guru. He
Bullshit.
brought his back to the world
And
after
we
that.
know this
If
how?
you remember from part 1, the Kundalini of the planet was residing in Tibet at that time. They were very spiritually adept people living there, and remain so today.
Giant spirit snake,
Now, on
right?
the topic of Christ, there's something else I'd like to bring up. The Lord's Prayer.
Too
Today,
bad,
we
like,
know this as the only prayer that Jesus
What?
taught. But did you know it's actually a geometric prayer meditation?
Dude,
A
what?
man named Bodhi McCoy spent over 20 years working with this prayer and analyzing it with sacred geometry.
Took him 20 years to shoehorn this crap into his bullshit beliefs. He's kinda sucks.
The original prayer, not the extended version I do, has 7 segments or thoughts. which align
Right, just the
perfectly
shortened
with
part,
7
because
chakras,
if you
as
do
well
the
as
whole
the
thing,
yoga
it just
yoga.
doesn't work.
This fucker knew anything about Tibetan Buddhism. He'd know that whole Jesus going to Tibet thing was bullshit.
Based on the Lord's Prayer, called heart dances. It's
And they haven't made any money off that.
Yeah, make up stupid shit. And,
Check out Live the
yeah,
Promise.
No.
If
Or
you study
not.
Christian religion and Egyptian religion, you'll actually find that they parallel in almost every way, except for the Egyptians' understanding of God. Most evidence shows that Christian religion came out of Egyptian religion.
Dude, what?
And later they went back and discredited the Egyptians.
And this is why they're totally fucking different. Yeah.
Around 300 AD, there was a council called the Council of Nicaea, which was the syndication between the Roman political and religious authorities. Basically, the religious leaders and political leaders realized that they could unite and impose more influence on the people and control society through
Yo,
their
Drama Mama, in
Right
post.
around this
Add in
time-
somebody that knows what the fuck they're talking about here.
because religion and power, that's just a real novel concept there, buddy.
Dude, this guy doesn't know jack
that
shit,
we
though.
begin to see the manifestation of the New Testament, which was put together from scriptures and stories,
Not the Council
some
of
newer and
Nicaea.
some much older, which were renewed and superimposed on the life of Joshua ben Hur, which today we know as Jesus of Nazareth. The term
Ben-Hur,
Christ
right.
actually stems back from much before the Bible.
What?
So Jesus existed, then Christ existed,
I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
but the only documents that we have that talk about them were supposedly put together at the Council of Nicaea.
But you know
Oh!
they weren't.
Wait! Yeah.
It comes from the word Christala, which is a word that derives from the original 7 core audible sounds of creation.
Yo,
When
what?
the creation of the universe occurred, the original tones were ka, ra, ya, sa, ta, ha, la. Christla actually
Says
was
who?
broken down on earth into 2 words, Christ, which soon became Christ, and Hla, which became Allah.
Dude, what?
Down and changed through oral tradition. The symbol for Atlantis was 3 rings inside.
Oh, this fucking shit again,
the
man?
Calls, the middle ring were called Maya, and the outer ring were the Atlanteans.
We've
The
been
Maya's job was
here.
communicating the messages from the inner circle out to the regular people of Atlantis. When Atlantis sank, the Maya took their knowledge, a crystal skull with memories of Atlantis,
Dude,
on their
what?
calendar, and went out.
Oh my god, the crystal skull has memories!
Yeah, all those are frauds,
to what
man.
today is called the Yucatan
All of
Peninsula,
them. They
birthplace
finally
of
got to
Mayan
examine the last
civilization.
one.
This calendar is the most advanced, detailed calendar on the planet, and it has its roots in Atlantis.
Not the most advanced.
No.
Over the last few hundred years, a group of people have slowly monopolized the entire world into what it is now. Today, there are 13 families that are among the richest families in the world.
Dude, this...
They have their hands in next to every organization and government and control over 95% of the money. They control our modern
And
world
they're the
from
Martians,
very
right?
top. Today, we like to call them the Illuminati, except that's not really who they are. The
No,
word
we
Illuminati
don't.
means enlightened ones, which was established long ago as a secret society that was focused around expanding knowledge.
The Jesuit
scientific
monks,
and spiritual
1790?
understandings. Secret societies were not originally bad, but rather
think.
consisted of those who just kind of got it. They understood information that the
Started
average
by a
person
Jesuit
at that
monk.
time would not accept and demonize. These societies had to be kept a secret because of the control that the church had.
Or
Dude,
they
an
were
answer
just
to the
red.
Enlightenment, man.
War. This is where Freemasonry originally comes from.
Bullshit.
If you do the research on the time
Or
period,
they were
what
just
probably happened was that the church, who had the
Masons.
majority of the control at the time, probably infiltrated some of these organizations to make sure that they were not creating plans to expose information and destroy the world order that they had created.
Dude, what?
Right.
This led to the church exposing some of the societies as devil worship and blasphemy, and fear of these groups.
Oh,
Over time,
hail
many secret societies branched off by those who
Satan!
were corrupt or previously infiltrated by the church and gained more control through the church and large organizations that were being established. Today, there exist 13 families around the world who pretty much own the world, with 95% of the money and a lust for greed, power, and control. More and more information has become present lately that many of these families may have DNA that is different than the rest of the human population.
What?
It is special
Martians!
DNA that was passed down from the Martian race.
Soldier!
They contain no love or emotion and are completely power-driven.
Dude, this is fucked up.
This brings us to the end of the human history story for spirit science. But
Oh,
of course,
thank
it's not
God.
really the end. For one, we've only
Or
really scratched
thought.
the surface of discussing many
Oh,
of these
shit.
topics.
Dude,
Secret
tell me
societies
this isn't
like
going
that
on
will
any
take
longer,
another 2 or
please.
3 lessons to really get into. Plus,
Please,
the
no.
human history story won't end because we're still living it, and what happens next is ultimately up to you. This
Oh,
story,
good.
while seemingly unbelievable and at times outrageous, does explain
Complete
a lot.
bullshit's more like
Think
it.
No.
about it. We've covered
No, it
the
doesn't.
Bermuda Triangle, the face on Mars, Jesus, what the Egyptians were doing, the rise of Greece, pretty much most modern religions, the reason we popped up out of nowhere 6,500 years ago,
No, we
the
didn't!
evolution of those cultures, and the story of Atlantis,
Except
which
that
was
was wrong.
to us at the best of times.
Calm down,
Also
man.
Wrong.
The Great Pyramids, the connection to all of the sacred sites of the planet, the
Wrong.
Sumerian tablets, the Emerald tablets,
Wrong.
Lucifer, And
Wrong.
as for the Hebrews, if you read their
Wrong.
Talmud, it actually seems to
Yeah, to
suggest
believe this shit,
they're
I'd have
not
to be
from
stupid,
here.
not high.
I don't have to tell you to believe it, but it definitely puts some perspective on many questions and aspects about the world which we generally just don't have conclusive answers to. Take it with a grain of salt, though. After
Or
all,
does it?
it is just a theory.
Dude, you know what that word fucking means. Oh, it's fucking over, man. Oh, and my sash is empty.
Oh my God!
I don't think he'd sign off on this shit. I'm fucking out
I
of here.
hate you all!
Oh man, don't hate us. Come back. Wasn't our idea.